I've seen a lot of videos of people trying to detect what they call the patient zero of identity politics, or basically, I mean, the idea is where comics went wrong. What is the patient zero of that? And is there a patient zero? Is this something you can actually find? Isn't this all subjective? Well, sort of, but is there a smoking gun of where things went bad? Well, let's talk about that. Hey everybody, this is Perch. I like listening to these videos because the theories are often pretty amusing to listen to, and it's people trying to figure out what they call the patient zero of where comics went wrong. And keep in mind, in many ways, this is very subjective. Of course, it is. Different people have different opinions of what wrong is. If you're a big Scott Pilgrim fan, for example, your idea of what went wrong in comics is probably vastly different than others. If you are a comic shop retailer and you remember just having stacks and stacks of unsellable '90s comics, then you have a different view of where things went wrong. If you are not a fan of Marvel's current appeal to YA or whatever they call this initiative, then you have a different. Everybody's got their own opinions of where things went wrong, and in fact, this is not a new thing, by the way. It's I know I had this argument with somebody on Twitter where I'm saying, basically saying, people with long memories just seem to be in short supply at this point. And this for the first time I got pushback. I like pushback like this, where somebody just states something that they believe, but most people don't say out loud. And in this case, the statement was, um, "Why should I be expected to remember anything more than 5 years old?" And, and I thought I appreciated I appreciated that comment because it was just out there. I mean, I think that's batshit crazy, but that's okay. I mean, if you don't care about history, why beat around the bush? Just say I don't care about history. I've got a 5 year timeline for what I can remember, and then I'm out. I mean, it's your party. You can choose to do whatever you want, and I mean that. I may think you're crazy, but that's my right. I get to do that. I get to say that's a crazy point of view. But in comics, I remember having many debates in the '90s about where comics went wrong. And generally speaking, there was kind of one or two fronts to it. If you were a DC, Vertigo, or Independent fan, and those were always kind of grouped together to a large extent, then where things went wrong is when Marvel went, corporate. And their view of corporate were things like certainly the Clone Saga. It was stuff like the variant covers, even though other companies were doing it too. It was the kind of the overuse of Captain America and Iron Man and kind of the white bread approach of those characters, and or in some cases kind of the extreme kind of people yelling, very cliche kind of comment. That was one angle, and on the other, if in many cases if you're a Marvel fan and you point to the DC Vertigo kind of stuff, people always pick on like Doom Patrol or in some cases Sandman and those kind of comics. And where they went wrong is too much of that gay stuff. I, Marvel, the arguments from the Marvel fans were always really concise. It's like, and I'm just saying these are the kind of arguments that would go on in comic shops. And I remember, you have memories that you can completely put yourself back in the moment. I mean, this is like close to 30 years ago. And I can put myself in the moment, kind of standing behind the counter, leaning up against it. And these two people really going at it with you just like Rambo stuff and you just like gay stuff. And that was the fight. And I'm like, I remember I'm talking to this guy, Kevin, and I lean over. I'm like, the solution here, gay Rambo. And anyway, sorry. Is there a patient zero for the? I mean, so lots of people have their ideas about where things went wrong and what these comics are. Um, Many people lately they'll point to Bendis, but since Bendis and a lot of his origin kind of goes beyond 5 years, a lot of people started to point to Tom King and Depression Vision as being a patient zero. Some people have pointed to Warren Ellis and Next Wave as a patient zero. I think there's a lot of little pieces. Um, I think, but what's interesting is, and by the way, I said this tongue in cheek to somebody earlier today. But I remember somebody back around 2004. It was when there was arguments because they had made Colossus gay in Ultimate X-Men, the Ultimate line, and there was a complaint. Again, another comic store argument. And the people are arguing about where did it go wrong? Where did comics go wrong in a pandering to this stuff? So where they're pandering to this stuff. And somebody finally like came out with a very confident answer of it was when they put when they put Storm in charge of the X-Men. You had a black woman. She didn't even have powers. She didn't even have powers, and it was called the X-Men. And you have a black woman running the X-Men. That was where it went wrong. I remember hearing that, and I'm like, wow, because I love that era. I mean, I remember the guy was he believed it. He completely believed it deep in his soul. And and I'm joking with this guy earlier today. I'm like, he came up with kind of a winning response, basically, of you could really take this back to when Saturn Girl used her powers to manipulate the vote to become the first woman to lead the Legion of Superheroes. That was the SJW invasion right there, and I'm like, oh my God! Back in the '50s, the Lois wore pants. Why did they let her wear pants? Anyway, you can go nuts with that kind of stuff. And that of course is joking, and a lot of people who are deeply offended right now with everything I've just said. But there are definite. What is true about all this is there's an expression. I think the camel's nose under the tent. There is been trial balloons for different concepts in comics. What's weird to me is this, and I hope I can make this argument well. There have been interviews with comic creators in the past where they've talked about sneaking something into a comic, or I was hoping we'd get away with this, and the editor didn't flag it, so we got away with it, and it kind of opened the door for other opportunities. And you've heard this from time to time. There was some comments about that kind of in respect to Monica Rambeau when she became the leader of the X-Men. Oh yeah, Marvel just had this black women leading teams in Marvel. Patient zero. Anyway, there was these moments where they were testing things out. What's weird to me is this: is a lot of the things that were being kind of tested out were being done to see if they could get around the Comics Code Authority or get around, basically breaking from we have a very defined way of doing things, and so this was going to be a different approach of storytelling or art or kind of team makeup or a different kind of storyline that was outside of kind of the norm establishment. um, the things that I think, well, but a lot of people today view moments like North Star coming out in Alpha Flight, or the wedding between North Star and I can never remember the guy's name in Uncanny X-Men, as being kind of this sneaking agenda. And those, I mean, having known a lot of the people involved, it wasn't kind of a sneaky thing. It was the company as a number of people involved in those decisions. The big things that I often hear in videos that people say are kind of they're sneaky, patient zero, like trying to prep. They're not. It's not one or two creators trying to sneak something in. It's the entire company or a lot of people in the company are making a decision to do something, and it's very much a by committee, and it kind of reads that way too. I mean, I think about some of the ways, like take for example the way Obsidian over in DC, and how as a homosexual character he was handled and written and rolled out, versus say North Star and how he came out in Alpha Flight. One feels a lot more uh, organic, or normal's the wrong word, but just natural, because one feels very like a story that you're reading, and one feels like a corporate, like people put a bunch of buzzwords on the wall and like circled the ones they liked the best, and somehow a comic was made. The North Star title, which I think came with a press release and a lot of other things, it felt very much like a corporate kind of decision. It didn't feel like a sneaky patient zero kind of thing. Oh, the Obsidian thing didn't either. It felt like more of a natural story. But it's just, I guess my point here is that there are definite moments where creators will do things that I think unlock other things, and sometimes they're positive, and I think sometimes they're also negative. I mean, I'll give you an example of one that is not storyline based, not social issue based, but it was Marvel, for example, saying, "Hey, let's see if we can get the penciler to also do the inking. Let's see if we can do away with one of these roles. Let's see if we can, hire these people out of South America to do the art at a reduced rate, and let's see if it can work with the scheduling and shipping of art and everything else, and let's see if this will go." Those are experiments people don't often talk about, but to me, those are more the patient zero we should be paying attention to, because those are the moments where they were making business decisions that had a profound impact on creators and page rates and how work got done, far more than, hey, this team had more girls on it than boys. That stuff is a bit of a distraction. Now, if you like teams with all boys on them, I mean, yeah, I get that this might alarm you, but I think the deeper penalty for you as a comic reader is going to be that impact of you know basically getting comics done on the cheap. Let's see if we can reduce the quality of this paper and see if anyone will notice. Let's see if we raise the comic price by 25 cents and everybody will just buy it anyway. Hey, let's see if we can have an event that starts 3 months after the last event rather than a year after. Let's see if people go for it. That's the kind of stuff. Let's see if we relaunch this issue after only nine, issues to see if we can juice the sales on a new number one. To me, that's the thing to pay attention to, and that's the patient zero. But I do like listening to these series; they're fascinating. And somebody was pointing out Lockjaw. There's a comic called Lockjaw as being a patient zero for agenda woke comics, and I mean maybe. I mean the weird thing is a lot of these comics don't sell well. They don't. The patient zero doesn't sell well, and then the future comics don't sell. Like none of this stuff sells well. So as a patient zero, I mean, the point of a patient zero is like a virus. It's supposed to sneakily kind of get into the system before you realize it, and then spread wide. And I mean, you can make an argument certainly that there's been way too much comics going in the same kind of social directions. But I would argue, rather than that being a sneaky plot, I'd argue that that's unimaginative people who are just regurgitating the same crap over and over again. I think it's a lack of creativity far more than hey, let's sneak in one comic and then four more and then 20 more. I think the stuff that's more sneaky and deceptive like that is stuff like I mentioned, like paper quality and artist rates and pencilers who are also inkers and cover prices and relaunches. That's the stuff that I think is the sneaky stuff. The other stuff often just feels like people don't know what they're doing. But I don't know. What do you think? Leave a comment below. What's your patient zero? What's your patient zero story? Let me know in the comments below. It's fun to talk about and think about. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Thank you to everybody who supports the channel. Uh, Follow me on social media or send me an email at comicsperch@gmail.com. And thanks for listening.